This past year has really been a topsy-turvy experience. I don't think that there's one person over the past year who hasn't at some point felt profound disappointment, anxiety, depression, loss, grief, or even anger. As I reflect over everything that we've been through and everything that we continue to go through, I'm really compelled to seek God's face. The prophet Isaiah reminds us in Isaiah 55:6 to seek the Lord while he may be found, to call upon his name while he is near. In my quest of seeking God, I began reading through the Bible starting in Genesis. When I got to the book of Leviticus, it was a bit grievous to get through. There's a whole bunch of rules and a litany of meticulous details of how the priests were supposed to offer sacrifices to God. So as I continue trying to process all this and pray and continue to read, it became evident to me that if God required such detail from his people with regards to them interfacing him, he must be a really holy God. So many times I think that we're tempted to bring God down to our level, but that's not who he is. When we seek him, he shows us through his word who he is. He tells his people in Leviticus 11:44 to dedicate themselves to being holy because he is holy. As God's children, as we experience adversity, we're compelled to seek God's face. The prophet Moses, when he was leading the people from Egypt through the wilderness, and all the stuff that he went through and the ups and downs and the challenges that he faced, he requested of God that God would show him his face. And God tells him that no man can look upon his face in all of his glory and live. This kind of reminds me of the sun. You can't look directly at the sun, and if you get too close to the sun, you'll be consumed. God tells us these things about himself in scripture so that we'll have a more clear picture of his nature and of his character. And the more that we see this picture through studying the scriptures, the more that we realize that we really can't bring down God to our level and make him what we want him to be. We have to accept him for who he is and who he says that he is, and we have to live our lives accordingly. King David says in Psalms 139:23 and 24, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. See if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the path everlasting." As children of God, we need to ask God the same things that David asked God. We need to ask him to search our hearts and reveal to us our flaws. As we step into the sunlight, or as we draw closer to God through meditation of his word, it's like stepping into the sunlight. You begin to see any flaws in yourself because it's illuminated, and the standard now becomes not making God who you want him to be, but he becomes the standard, and we're compelled to reflect him and be more like him. As children of God, we understand that the sacrifice of Jesus, the sacrifice of God in the flesh, and the spilling of his blood frees us from the meticulous litany of rules that were required as sacrifice in order to commune with God. The sacrifice of Jesus reconciled us to a God. It reconciled unholy man to a perfect and holy and righteous God. And as a result of that, through Jesus, now we're covered in his blood and we're not consumed by the fire. Through Jesus, we can look on the face of God. Okay, so as a child of God, we know that, we understand that, we profess that Jesus was the sacrifice and we accept his sacrifice. But it doesn't end there. We are to be holy as God is holy. He wants to know you intimately. He wants to permeate every aspect of your life. Deuteronomy 4:23 through 22:24 tells us, "Take care lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make a carved image, the form of anything that the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God." Obviously, we don't have carved images nowadays, but we do have other things in our life that we allow to take our passions away that should be directed towards Christ. It says, "If you love me, to keep my commandments." So we know that God is love. How do we demonstrate that love? We demonstrate that love and we partake in that love by walking in his will and following his paths and living a holy life and being holy as he is holy. So when you reflect back on all the adversity that we're going through and the unrest that we see in the world and the unrest that you may be seeing in your life, I would encourage you to ask yourself, what is it that God is trying to show you? Because God brings adversity into our lives and he brings uncomfortable times to get our attention because he's trying to teach us something. We have everything that we need in order to heal this world. We have everything that we need in order to heal what is going wrong in our life, because we have it, because we have Christ, we have God. He's given it to us. There's nothing more than he can say to us than he's already said. 2 Chronicles 7:14 reminds us, "If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land." We have the tools, we have the key, we have the answer to the adversity, we have the answer to the unrest that we see in the world. So I would encourage you, as you look around and as you maybe are discouraged from everything that's going on in your life, that you would seek God's face, because when we seek him and we draw nigh to him, he draws nigh to us. And I think that at that point we can have true peace, and you'll be amazed at what God can do through you and for you.